chat as always. Thank you. As in the chat, please share your name, personal pronouns, and what city you're zooming from, and your organization or school. You can see my example there at the bottom. Ben Robinson, he, him, Denver, Great Education, Colorado. All right. And Great Education Colorado's vision through public education, every Colorado student, regardless of their zip code, learning needs, language, identities, or the color of their skin, graduates prepared to lead their best life. And accompanying that, our mission. Great Education Colorado harnesses the power of grassroots activism and diverse, inclusive networks to guarantee that public schools in every Colorado community are welcoming and adequately, equitably, and sustainably funded. All right. Our goal, as always, for Advocates Network is to create a space for us to build a community and take action together. I see some new names here. So Advocates Network has been around for about, I think this is the third season. And we basically started convening around a campaign a few years ago, and organizing people that way, and it's just become a great space for us to come together, discuss issues that are going on in the education community, new campaigns, and to share information and solutions. So thanks everybody for turning out. All right, and Advocates Network meets the second Tuesday of every month from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. It should say April there. I will put that link in the chat in a little while when I am not going through slides. And last but not least, our community commitments. Number one there, the first bullet point is move up, move back. I know that everybody on this call has good things to say. We want you to be able to say them, but in order for that to happen, we can't monopolize conversation. So please be conscious of your speaking time and let others speak as well. Second one there, no one knows everything, but together we know a lot. Let's learn together. Everyone on this call presumably was once a student. Some of us are teachers or were maybe retired teachers, others activists in the education community, policy people, et cetera, et cetera. The point is that we all bring unique perspectives to this, and that it's a really, really great thing for us to be able to come together and learn from one another. And then last, we want to presume positive intent, but acknowledge our impact. It hasn't really happened much in the call, I think, that somebody has said something that maybe rubs another person the wrong way, or that they think is mischaracterizing a fact or a person or something like that. But in the case that does happen, we just want to make sure that we fix those disputes quickly and cordially, so that we can move on to what matters. All right. So for those of you who have been here for a while, you know all about the Get It Done campaign. For those of you who are new, maybe you've read our emails and you know about it, but maybe you haven't. So I'm just going to go through a quick sort of summary real quick about what the Get It Done campaign is, and then we will talk about briefly these bullet points on the left, and then we'll move into some more substantive things. So the Get It Done campaign is a campaign in the Colorado education community, really spearheaded by Great Education Colorado and the Great Schools Thriving Communities Coalition. And it was made in response to the adequacy studies. So the first state commissioned adequacy studies, which came out a few months ago now, which basically detail the resources that the students in each district around the state need in order to succeed. There's a dollar amount at the end of that, but we prefer right now to focus more on the resources for a few reasons. And so the first bullet point there you can see says prepare for the adequacy study release. So that's all over. And the second one says build local teams to advocate for the ultimate goal, which is implementation. And that is to heed the recommendations of the adequacy studies and eventually to come up with something, whether it is a ballot initiative, which it would likely be in our case, or some other things as well that would help us implement the recommendations from the adequacy studies. From there, we're going to go on to the legislature and advocate for an interim committee to create what we are calling the Colorado Blueprint for Student Success, which is just another word for turning those recommendations of the adequacy study into some kind of substantive policy recommendation. So that's where we are right now. And this video that we're going to play, it's very short. It's just sort of encapsulates what we are asking of our legislators here. So I'm going to go ahead and press play.
The Colorado Blueprint for Student Success provides the framework to close the gaps in our schools caused by Colorado's chronic underfunding. The Colorado Blueprint aligns with legislative efforts like House Bill 1448, passed in 2024, which made important progress toward equitable school funding. Together, we're urging policymakers to take the next step, turning the adequacy study's recommendations into a plan for adequate and equitable investment in our public schools. When the legislature creates the Colorado Blueprint for Student Success, it will give us the foundation to create strong schools and a brighter future for Colorado. Legislators, we need you to meet with your constituents to learn what the adequacy studies mean for your school districts and to approve an interim committee that will create the Colorado Blueprint for Student Success. Together, let's get it done.
So thank you to our partners who saw the end there for signing on. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about, well, a lot about two things that I think concern a lot of people on this call. We've talked about TABOR at length before, but we've never really talked about the federal government and what's going on there and why it matters right now, perhaps more than ever, for how we run our state and how we run our public education system and how it's funded and the resources that students have, et cetera. So we're going to talk about the terrible T's tonight, Trump and TABOR. And we're first going to go over TABOR, and you'll see how all this ties together in a little while. So TABOR stands for the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights. It's been around just about 30 years, maybe a little bit longer. And TABOR works in a couple, well, more than a couple very sinister ways to constrain funding in Colorado, not just for education, but for other public expenditures as well. So we're going to focus really on three things today, and that's that it constrains the legislature's choices, right? That the legislature doesn't have the same avenues for recourse if something goes wrong because of TABOR, that the legislature cannot just raise taxes if we need more money. It also limits our options, right? In a lot of other states, voters could just vote on a progressive income tax straight up, or a real estate transfer tax or a statewide property tax, but you can't do that in Colorado, right? Because TABOR prohibits those things. And then probably the sort of most well-known thing is that TABOR caps revenue, right? And this is why we have all of these problems with spending in Colorado and why all of our public services, especially education, are woefully underfunded because TABOR places an arbitrary cap on the amount of revenue that the state can collect and spend each year. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what TABOR does to a state. And to do this, I'm going to hand this over to our executive director, Lisa Weil, and she's going to talk about a recent bill that sort of encapsulates all of these problems we just talked about.
Thanks, Ben. So you saw what the plan is for Get It Done, and it involves, as one of the steps toward getting to where the adequacy studies say we need to be to meet the needs of all students, that we want an interim committee. And we've been working with a lot of legislators, and many of you have taken the action. You'll have a chance again at the end to write your legislators and say, we want an interim committee, because we want to have the legislature, first of all, say, we are committed to doing right by our students. We are not okay staying where we are, so underfunded. And now that we know how underfunded we are committed to implementing the recommendations of the adequacy study. So the interim committee makes a whole lot of sense. The structure exists. You're bringing people,
Okay,
the legislators together.
close.
And you've got the support of the legislative council, and they have the ability to put together ideas and put them into a bill that can be just considered next year. That blueprint for student success. Well, last week on Wednesday, Senate Bill 25-199 was proposed. It suspends existing interim committees and prevents new ones from being created. This, you may have heard, was that the Colorado Youth Advisory Council was going to be cut. They get to meet just once in the year instead of the way that they've been doing it in the decades since it was created. And so it's why do we need to do this? We need to do this because we have a $1.2 billion deficit, right? And I think, Ben, there may be a next slide or to go through this. Okay, so I made that point. This is how the legislature gets smarter. It's how it gets information. It's how it brings in and does stakeholders and makes good policy. Because for any of you who have lobbied during the session, it is not a time of great reflection and long discussions about options and policy. It is absolutely crazy insanity of intense work and not a lot of reflection. And so that's why we want the interim committee. Okay, next slide. So some of the interim committees that are specifically mentioned that are being suspended, and not just suspended, but are not to receive any information, including reports that are on their way. Everything is being put on pause. On suicide prevention, emergency preparedness, healthcare, substance abuse. There are all these standing committees that are supposed to get information and consider it. So it's the Blinders Act. It will save all of $350,000 to put all of this on hold and to basically tell the legislature, put blinders on. We can't get smarter about these issues. We don't have enough money to get smarter about these issues. So next slide, Ben. So why is this happening? Why is it that right now our request for an new interim committee and all those other interim committees are on the chopping block? And this is the story of Tabor. So the JBC needs to find $1.2 billion in cuts. It may change next Monday. The new forecast is going to come out, and that is what the budget is really built on, what revenues have come in, and expectations for the economy. But right now, the number that they're trying to solve for is $1.2 billion. That it means we need $1.2 billion more to be able to spend $1.2 billion more just to maintain our current caseload for healthcare, for schools, plus inflation. So it's $1.2 billion cut to just maintaining what we have. So what you've heard about is a number of different things in addition to these small cuts. We've been hearing about this idea of student averaging. The governor has decided that we will not bring back the budget stabilization factor, but instead we're going to have sort of this backdoor budget stabilization factor where we'll just count fewer kids. And to try to save $147 million. There's going to be a lot of talk about whether they're going to do that or not. That's not the point of today's meeting, but happy to talk to and we'll answer questions. about what's happening there, but districts are looking to take a haircut, and just as they're trying to build budgets and meet the needs of students. One of the other things that could happen is a 50% in cuts to education grants. In addition to what we spend for schools through the School Finance Act and the categoricals, we also have about $80 million a year in grants. Those might have to be cut in half. And then, of course, there's all kinds of other things, other services that support our students and in various ways in our communities. And everything's on the chopping block. But that doesn't mean we don't have money. It means that we can't spend the money. And even after we have raised $10 billion in the last 4 years that we had to give back in one way or another. And that is still happening even after a lot of permanent tax breaks and et cetera. The surplus has come back, and we don't have like $40,000 for this legislative interim committee. So I will tell you that we are not taking this lying down. We are going to continue to demand an interim committee. We are going to try to amend Senate Bill 199 so that if we can raise money, and think about this, we're in a place where in order to not just put our heads in the sand and not even dream about how we could meet the needs of our students someday, for the lack of $30,000 or $40,000, we won't, that's what is stopping the legislature from considering the options. So maybe we're asking them to allow us to raise the money. So in gifts, grants, and donations, so that the interim committee can meet. We might work on the School Finance Act. There's a lot of ways that we are going to fight to the last minute of this session to make sure that that there is some kind of committee that is set up, even if it isn't official. We will make sure there's going to be something, and we want an official statement from this legislature that they are committed to acting on the adequacy study and not just say this is as good as it gets. And next year we expect the budget to be even worse, by the way. So that's where what Get It Done is doing. That's why even for this tiny bit of expenditure to really plan for the future of all students, even that is undermined by TABOR.
Great. Thanks so much, Lisa. I think it looks like we might have some questions in the chat here. I have not been able to look yet, though, because I've been
Diana, yes, it's not a haircut. It's not a trim. It's a buzz. And after 15 years of the budget stabilization factor that took $10 billion out of our schools, and it is never lost on me that the BS factor took $10 billion out, and we've given back about $10 billion in the last few years, that this is not a sustainable situation for our students.
Any questions regarding TABOR? Yeah, Katie.
Hi. So I guess it's not a question about TABOR, but
Go ahead.
more like related to Get It Done and this bill that needs to be stopped. Is Great Ed and like Get It Done planning to be at the Capitol on March 20th? Is that like I saw a like 11:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. by CEA.
Mm-hmm.
And I really just think this is like a time to be like get as many of us there. You know, if they're already getting people there, like we get there and we get loud.
Really appreciate that. I am so glad you raised that. Yes, March 20th at the Capitol. CEA is doing that is inviting everybody. So we do encourage all of you to go to that. It's not it's a CEA thing. It's not officially endorsed by others, but we have been promoting that. We will have an advocacy day of our own on April 16th, and who knows where in the process we'll be then. But you're right, and what the CEA is saying is no cuts.
Yeah.
Just we should, after 15 years of balancing the budget on students' backs, there should be no cuts. And it's effective. I feel certain that the governor's $147 million, it's not going to be that bad. But what they're going to be able to do is, in part, depends on what we see from the forecast next week. But every opportunity you have to put pressure on the legislature is great. And if you do go on the 20th and you end up meeting with the legislators, you can also mention, we expect you to implement the adequacy study, support the legislative interim committee. In the meantime, we'll be playing what tends to be very inside baseball when these things move really quickly. The Senate Bill 199 is sponsored by the majority and minority leader of both houses. And so it was introduced on Wednesday. It was through its first and only committee by Friday. And actually, I have to see what happened today. It was supposed to be on the floor, but we'll be working that system. But the big pressure on no more cuts to students, and we expect the legislature to do right by our students, that there is no limit on the importance of that. So please, if you can make it to the Capitol, do that. Thanks for raising that, Katie.
Okay, and then Jerry in the chat, does SB 199 have a good chance of passing? And if so, can we get Polis to veto it? I mean, one of the reasons that, Jerry, that we would go the amendment route is because it does have a good chance of passing. And it would be nice to be able to attach something that's good for us to that, to the bill. As far as the chance that Polis will veto this, I think that is probably basically none, but I don't know if you have a different opinion there, Lisa.
No, I don't think he's gonna, I think this bill will pass. If it's amended is the only question, because the leadership wants it to pass. And I know we've talked to some senators about doing an amendment, and there's a lot of pressure that comes from the top because they're the sponsors to say, no, don't, we'd rather you didn't offer that amendment. And, leadership has ways of influencing that, and that they hold the power of where a bill gets sent and when things come to the floor, et cetera. So we have talked about, there has been a conversation, exactly, Christy, this conversation of why don't you just ask for a late bill? Which of course the leadership gets to say, no, you can't have a late bill. So we are working on it, and on both the House and Senate side. If we are not successful here, we still have the opportunity to try to do something in the School Finance Act, or that late bill could actually happen. I think the thing that I want to convey here is that I have seen over the last 20 years in the legislature when people have said, that's not going to happen. This is, this is dead in the water, and it comes back. It happens. Why does it happen? Because some pressure was put on the legislature in one way or another, through lobbying, through whatever means really has leverage in the Capitol. I'll let you all sort of fill in that blank. But if we get people contacting their legislator and saying, we expect this from you, will you just stand with us on this tiny little thing? That I think we can make that happen. We can make it look really bad. I put the link to the article about Get It Done that the Colorado Sun did yesterday. It's up in the chat already. Please share it on your social media, because that we are starting to roll that out. I'm really glad about the timing of that demand for a legislative interim committee coming right when 199 has been introduced. I talked today to the Chalk Beat, so it's got legs. And it'll be especially have legs if we give it legs, and that comes later in our conversation today.
Thank you very much, Lisa. We're going to go ahead and keep this thing rolling. And we're going to talk about the federal government and Donald Trump and his administration and what exactly they want for public education and what they are doing to public education right now. So, this guy hasn't been in office for very long, but he's already had a pretty big impact on public education. This is not at all surprising. This is exactly what he said he was going to do. But so we already have some executive orders that have happened. And then, oops, let me move this, sorry, so I can see. Limiting DEIA and race-related initiatives, that's from classrooms, that's from teaching, etc. Limiting protections for LGBTQ students, and I think a good way to put that is rolling some of them back. And increasing ICE enforcement in schools. Previous presidents, right, have not allowed Homeland Security or Immigrations and Customs Enforcement to go inside of schools, but the Trump administration has actually rolled back that part of the law, so that they can, so they have much freer reign. And then we have the weaponization of the Office of Civil Rights. So acting on complaints of the DEI, there's a tip line. Real quick, Lisa, can you just say what this tip line is? It's just a sort of ridiculous, clunky.
NDEI.edu.ed.gov. I'll find it, but it actually is tell us about something, have you seen a teacher say something that made your child feel uncomfortable about their, all of it is a national tip line. I have responded to it numerous times. I recommend that everybody else does to let them know. I think what I pointed out was that my concern is that teachers don't feel that they can teach honest history anymore, and want the office of the department to look into it. So yeah, that they are, and I guarantee it is also being used by the other side. And the whole idea is to chill speech in advance.
Thank you, Lisa. Then we have the dismantling of the Department of Education itself, cuts to and block granting. And then we have the promotion of vouchers and tax credits. We've seen this in our state. We had, oh my gosh, I can't remember her name, from Save Our Schools Arizona, come to one of these meetings last year and talk about, yeah, Beth Lewis, that the horrible effects of vouchers, often called education savings accounts or something like that, on education in Arizona. And we had a bill that went down in flame, or a ballot initiative that thankfully went down in flames here in our state last year, which I actually think they're going to reintroduce a version of it this year. So we'll see it in the off year.
Actually, just putting in in the chat, Initiative 22 is almost through the titling process. It's another constitutional amendment. Don't know if they're going to be out and about, but it's basically Amendment 80 again, because they've got the money to just put things on the ballot over and over.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about the impacts of what the Trump administration is doing. Now let's talk a little bit about the impact of the Department of Education on Colorado. So on the left here, and I'm sorry that the type is not very big, we have a fact sheet from AFT, and that talks a little bit about what Trump's education cuts, how they'll impact specifically folks in Colorado. And so we can talk a little bit more about that in a second, but just go ahead and look at that, and I'll focus on the right side of the screen here. So approximately 13.5% of public school funding, and this varies from state to state, comes from the federal government. Title I, 186 million, that's for what we call at risk in Colorado. And then IDEA, That's 22 million for special ed. That's a substantial amount of money that comes from the federal government. These programs have been around for a long time, and they've been doing really, really good work. And this is importantly not stuff that we can make up for at the state level, at least not in our state. All right. And then we have, so that includes teacher prep, ELL, before and after school. Lisa, do you want to talk a little bit about the teacher prep in Colorado?
Yeah, I was on a call with the Rural Schools Alliance last week, and we do have a number of grants, organizations throughout the state that are doing teacher prep. This one that I heard about specifically is working to recruit people in rural Colorado to go through a training process to become teachers in their own communities, and the funding stopped. So I don't know, it may get reinstated, but the damage that's being done is immediate.
Thank you, Lisa. And the issue is that even if funding for these programs were to continue, but not under the Department of Education, right, these functions go to different agencies, which creates problems, stovepipe funding, less efficiency, and more confusions for states and districts. The centralization of these programs is part of the reason, and programs like them is part of the reason that the Department of Education exists to begin with. And so to decentralize things again would, even if there's still funding for those programs, would create major issues for districts. And then in Colorado, every dollar truly matters, right? We have an incredibly lean budget in this state, and we don't have any money to make up for deficits that are incurred at the federal level, for example. And that is part of the reason that the Get It Done campaign exists, and it's the reason that we're acting on the adequacy studies the way that we are. All right. The administration, this is sort of a continuation of the previous slide, has gutted the Institute of Education Sciences, which researches teaching practices and student achievement. Those things are obviously very important. And that also, you may have seen this afternoon, but the department is to reduce staff by half, and that was as of about 3 p.m. today. We saw that in NPR, Inside Higher Ed, and a couple other places.
They sent a email to all staff at 5 p.m. They're going to do reductions in force. And apparently, according to NPR, they have closed the Department of Education building tomorrow, supposedly to open up on Thursday, but nobody knows what they will be doing to literally dismantle. I don't know if that's putting people's things in boxes so that they can pick them up. But it is inhuman. Yeah, so that we just heard that. Good point, Christy. I mean, this is just looking at what happens with the funding that comes to us through the Department of Education. And then there is all the funding that comes through Medicaid. If they cut that gashes yet another hole in the state budget, which again will impact our education, our state education funding. So we do have this one action you can take. Ben gave it a go. I really recommend you do this, especially if you're in Congressional District 8. I'm looking at you, Barb. And folks in Adams 12 and Thompson, and because Gabe Evans is the, student loans on the chopping block too. Gabe Evans is in the most competitive district in the country. He just won by very few votes in the last election. And so I'm sure he so far is walking lockstep with the administration, but he needs to know that he will have to face angry voters if he ever shows up at a town hall, and especially at the ballot box next year. So this is it's a mechanism where you You put in your address, it will tell you it'll give you your 2 senators and your legislator, and then it calls you and it puts you through.
Yeah, and it is, just to prime you, it is kind of a weird robotic voice, and it pronounces one of the words in the title of the actual action incorrectly, but it does put you directly into the offices of these different legislators. And it's something that you can do tonight, you can do tomorrow, you can do anytime. What we're really going for here is that they get a massive volume of calls from people who are rightly pissed off about the way things are going. And let's see if we just have any, let's see if we have any questions.
QR code isn't working?
It worked.
It worked for me.
Okay.
Let me see. I'll go ahead. I'm going to stop sharing real quick, and I'll go ahead and put that link in the chat as well, just so that people can click on it. Because if you just do it on your computer, it'll still call your phone. All right.
It means y'all are going to get a call right now. However, that may not have been maybe we'll re-put this link in the at the end of the slideshow.
There's
It did work for
there's
me.
the link.
I redid it,
Okay.
it worked.
Yeah,
So
sometimes those things are a little bit finicky.
this is the translation, the transition to when we talk about what we need to do. And
Yep.
the visualization I have of Colorado right now, we are about to get a gut punch from the federal government. In all of these cuts, in all of these ways, whether it's through Medicaid, block grants, vouchers, there's so many ways we're going to take a gut punch, and Colorado has its hands tied behind its back. There is nothing that we can do. Other states can have all kinds of tools at their disposal. Colorado does not. What Get It Done is about is untying our hands. And ultimately, we're going to need to change TABOR. But in the near future, what we need to do is keep our legislature from just getting into like depressive helplessness of saying all this stuff is coming and it's a bummer and we just have to keep cutting. That's why Get It Done is being optimistic and saying, we can do this. This is a man-made problem. That man is Doug Bruce. But we have the ability. We're just choosing not to right now. We have the ability to make a difference. We should not be afraid of the voters. We should engage the voters. And the first thing that our legislators can do is lift up their eyes, look to the horizon, and give people something to work toward that is, here's where we are. The adequacy study says we need to be here. It's not all going to happen at once, but how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And the first bite is to make a commitment. We are going to act on the adequacy study. And the first thing that we've got to do is start making a plan. And I am going into depth on this because it might feel weird when all of this is happening and this onslaught in education and everything else to say, I'm working on trying to get a legislative interim committee for the adequacy study. It sounds really far removed. It's not. This is the way we pry open TABOR. This is the way that we get the legislature to tell the story of where we can be. And this is the only way to untie the hands that are Colorado's hands. Or it's not the only way, but this is the way that a number of the organizations, CASE and CASB and Rural Schools Alliance and so many others, Colorado PTA, A for PEP, are saying this is the way that we can loosen those whatever they are, tying our hands together. And so I asked Ben for the moment to just make the case. We cannot just take these body blows. We have got to do right by our students, and this is the plan, because otherwise it just looks like an elephant that we can't take on.
Great. Well, the first bite out of that elephant, actually the first couple bites, we've already taken a few. We have some online actions, which I'm going to bring up on the screen here in a second, and y'all can scan the QR codes, and I'll also put the links there. But we also really need to just go for the heart, right? And that means direct contact with our legislators. Like writing is fine, but a lot of times it doesn't do much. And petitions are fine, but the same thing, like they get lost or, um, you know, so what we want to do, what we're going to start doing, is making some calls of our own, just like that app that you all, or that action that a lot of you have started using that we put in the chat. We're going to go after our legislators, our senators, our representatives, and we need your help because people on this call are our best activists. You guys have been doing it a long time. You've gotten us on the ballot before. You've helped us win, and we want you to help us again on perhaps the most important mission, certainly the most important mission that I have been on in my 5 years with this organization. And I think a pretty big one overall. I think Lisa would agree. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up the slides real quick. But while I'm doing that, I would love it if you dedicated activists, education activists on this call would put your name in the chat. If you'd be willing to help me, Lisa, and other members of the Get It Done team do some phone outreach to our legislators. And we have some districts that I think, thank you, Christy. So we have one down. Can we get some more commitments in the chat? That would be great. But over the next couple of weeks, really, that's going to be our focus: is contacting legislators and contacting them, at a high call rate, and making sure that we're getting our message across. So if you put your name in the chat here, what I will do, what we will do, is give you a call script. And we're actually, sorry, Lisa, you're right. We're actually, our first round is we're making calls to other activists, so to other people like us on this call, many of whom you've probably worked with before, but we're trying to mobilize as many people as possible, so that when we contact our legislators, we have much bigger gravity, and it works. It just works better. So let me go ahead. Share this.
So what we're hoping is that some folks we hope you'll adopt your own district, your own senator, legislator, and say, I want we need to meet with you so you understand what the adequacy study means and what it means to our district. And so we have some targeted districts. We know people on the Eastern Plains, critical, because we want to get bipartisan support, and Senator Byron Pelton, and actually his brother, who also represents that area, we want them to hear from all of the school districts in their, Senator Pelton has probably 25 school districts in his Senate district. And so we want to start calling. We have a list of 1,300 people who have been active with Great Education Colorado over the last couple of years. Some of them we don't have phone numbers for, so we won't be contacting them, but we're going to prioritize them. And what we're looking for with all you folks who have said that you will help us out is that we will give you the script to call those folks in the targeted districts and in your own district, if you're willing to do that, to put pressure on their legislators to meet about this and say they will support a legislative interim committee. So this is real organizing. You'd be talking to people, first your own legislators, but also talking to people who believe in public education, have taken action in the past. Some of them will say, I don't have time, but all we need is a couple people who are going to say, yes, I will make sure that I get something on the calendar, and we have a whole toolkit that we will make available to everybody. We're just finalizing it now, of an email you can send to your legislator, and how you can invite other people to a meeting that's been that's been scheduled. We have a PowerPoint. We are happy to be there to present the PowerPoint and to answer questions. And we're really asking people to, at these meetings with the legislators, to be able to say, first, this is what the impact is going to be in our communities. And second, will you help us get it done? And then we want y'all to report, did they say they will help us get it done? And we will celebrate the ones who did and ask you to shout them out on social media. And we will tell folks that if their legislators said, no, I'm not going to help you get it done, or no, I will not meet with you. Diana?
Thank you.
We're on it, man. This is awesome. I am so excited. Thank you to everybody who's already said they'll do it.
Great, thank you, and keep it coming if you would. We also now are going to go over a few more opportunities for involvement, which I think a lot of you have seen. But if you've seen it and haven't done them, or you haven't seen them and haven't done them, obviously, they're still really important. So we have our online action, which we're going to talk about next. You may have seen this in a few emails. We're getting legislators to commit to learn more about the adequacy study, but not only that, we're getting them to commit to meet with people. A nice upshot of this is that we have learned about a couple town halls that we didn't know about, which are really, really important. We can get a lot of people to those, and we can also supply legislators and their aides with a ton of information about this, and ask them to take a couple minutes to talk about this with the people in their district. All the better if we have people in the district who are committed to talking to their legislator about the Get It Done campaign. So all you have to do is fill in your personal info. Once you scan the QR code and you're in there, which is on the next slide, you can personalize your email if you want. We have written a stock email. Please keep the links in there. Those are really important. And then press send. And then what happens next is you'll get a confirmation email back, and your senator and your House member will get your ask to learn more about the adequacy studies and to meet with you to discuss them and discuss that interim committee. So here's the QR code. Just take a couple minutes. You can scan that. You don't have to complete the action right now, but at least it'd be great if you had it on your phone or your desktop. It doesn't really matter. It works either way. And probably better on a computer, but and then I will go ahead and put that link in the chat in just a minute, so that you'll have access to it that way if the QR code is giving you any kind of trouble.
Even if you have done it and you haven't heard back from your legislator,
Do it
just
again. Yeah. Do it again. Yeah.
say, I'm raising this up in your email. I asked you before, but it's that this is our moment.
And we have gotten some decent responses to this. Like I said, found out about some town halls, and we've gotten a bunch of people interested in the campaign itself.
This action is available on the Great Ed website where it says take action. It's email your legislator.
Great. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to our last opportunity for involvement here. In the schedule of priorities, just so you know, calls right now are number one. We want to get that direct contact. We want to get people excited about this. This action is really important. But it's, if you've already sent it and you've gotten a response, that's awesome. Move on to the calls and help us out there. Third, we are working with an organization called the Empower Project. Empower is an online app or mobile app that helps us organize people and it uses relational organizing. If you've ever heard of that, it's also sometimes called friends and family organizing. And the idea is in that name, which is that you talk to your friends, you talk to your family, you talk to people you're close with, and who care about the things you care about, or who at least care about you, and you tell them why the Get It Done campaign, why the adequacy studies are so important. So through the Empower Project, or the Empower app, we send out some calls to action. We haven't done a ton of them yet, but we would love to get more people in there. The more people we have in our system there, the greater or the more our ability is to actually utilize the app and talk to people throughout the state and get coordinated action going. So that is that's the app or the QR code to join. One thing, if you do join this, you'll fill out all of your information. It's very easy. And then you will just hit like a blank screen or a screen without much on it. That's fine. There's not going to be something there right away. Basically, when I send a call to action to you all, for example, ask 4 or 5 of your friends and family to sign up for Empower and spread this message with some of their friends, for example, then you will be notified on your phone and in the app. And you'll also receive a text message as well. I'm going to go ahead and give folks just a minute more to use this QR code, and then I'm going to go ahead and put the links to those things in the chat. So you can get them that way if you need to. Okay. Great. And it looks like lots of people in the chat are really excited about all this stuff. So thank you all for volunteering your time and your energy. I think this is going to be really cool. Okay. There's the Empower link for you. Here is that link to the action where you can send the email to your legislators.
And we will be, Ben always does his recap call, and all of these links will be in it.
Yep. And I think, let's see. Oh, Lisa, do you have anything else get it done wise or sort of campaign wise before we wrap up our formal agenda here?
No, we'll just be, now that we've got the names of folks who are willing to take on a district or two, kind of, we'll have you kind of adopt a district of our most, first, we hope you'll do your own. And then we have the targets. So we will get back to you all in that. Tell us, how can we help you? What can we provide to you to make your work easier? And like I said, we will have a toolkit with the how to the language to contact your legislator again, and the invitations to others to come and join, and the presentation, etc. What else can we do? How can we help? Katie.
Hi again. So our like school level PTA, we've talked about taking some of the FAQs that you all have on the website and maybe some of like the get it done facts, like bite-sized facts. And we have like a weekly school newsletter. And this is just information, right? This is education. But we want to have like a weekly fact about funding in Colorado, education funding in Colorado, that we share with our entire school community every week. And so I haven't had to, like, it's been an idea that we had, but like, is that something we could help with? Like, is that like a, version of like, so once a week, like until the school year ends? Like it's not that many weeks, but like what is the
Right.
information we want to get? And it's something, it's bipartisan, it's information, right? Like I don't think we need to say like, yeah. Do you see where I'm getting at this?
Yeah, I do. And I'm wondering if some of the facts that we can start putting out and see if this feels in addition to we are the, 51st in competitive teacher salaries, to say the adequacy study suggests that there be a tutor in every school, and a counselor for every this many students.
Yeah.
And, and then people can sort of make their own conclusions about, well, that's not what we have.
Right. And we like want it to be like an education 101 or education funding 101, but it's just like these facts. And then it can link to what is the adequacy study and learning about it and getting involved. Or like for me at my school level, it can link to me and say like contact Katie, who leads the advocacy committee, if you want to talk more about this. But so that it gets to every single person in our school community. And it connects them to me, like if they have a way to contact me or get more information, but they just get these bite-sized things. They're looking at the newsletters. I don't know.
We are going to try to be doing a lot of that on social media, so we can sort of repurpose that. We do encourage everybody to go to our if you aren't part of Facebook, we're on Blue Sky, we're on X, Twitter, sorry. So we'll have a lot of content there. We hope people will use that. I put the link to ask for a presentation in the chat if there's some group that we can go to. And Katie, I think Dawn is not here anymore from PTA, but we also can be working with PTA to make sure that that's happening on our PTA website too. Kathy. Thanks, Katie.
Yes, I like Katie's idea, and I can see possibly having a blurb, just a short blurb like that in the League of Women Voters, definitely the Larimer League, because I can send that to everybody in the Larimer League, but possibly in just in the weekly State League newsletter. We have that for news access and literacy and how to identify disinformation and misinformation. So this might be just a quick thing that we could put in with each newsletter, and that goes across the state. So I like that one. And I have to get to a league meeting now. So
Thank you, Kathy, and we'll talk about that tomorrow in our communications meeting. Jerry?
Hi, a few things. One, the day of action next week, the hope is that with those districts that are not on spring break, that there will be enough absentees with teachers going down that the district will have to cancel classes, that will send a message out to the public that we have a problem. The other thing, Lisa, I don't know, I know we work with CEA, but we've got the CEA Delegate Assembly coming up on April 4th and 5th, and I'm wondering if grade ed could, if they're not on the agenda, maybe can get there to talk about this, because there's over 600 teachers that will be there.
Jerry, I would love to, and we've been talking a lot with CEA, but they are doing a lot on their own. Feel free to mention that. And I think the retired group, I know retired can't get endorse something without CEA endorsing, but I do hope that as
We do all the time.
well, if that's actually another thing. If any of you represent an organization that wants to endorse the Get It Done campaign, we will put your logo on our website and add to it. So, but anything that you can do. I met with Cooper, the newish executive director. He was supportive, but also just 6 months into being executive director in Colorado and with this kind of budget, it's he's got a lot of things on his plate. So anything that you can do to sort of raise up the desire to be part of this as well would be awesome.
Okay.
Anything
Any
else?
questions? Danielle?
Ed?
Hi. I am cooking, so I'm here and trying to do all the things at once. Um, only been to one of these meetings in the past, and but I've been following the email, and I think I follow you on Facebook and all of those things. I work in higher education, and I do federal advocacy. I'm not here representing my work, right? But we have grants from the Department of Education, so everything is very up in the air for us as well. But I I'm leaving for a conference tomorrow, and our federal relations officer is supposed to be at a meeting on Saturday. We don't know if he still has a job right now or if he will by Saturday. And of course, there could be a government shutdown in the middle of all of this, and so like really things are very up in the air. I'm also a mother to 2 kids who go to school in Jeffco, and my entire family is in education. I have a sister who's a professor and another one who teaches first grade, and my dad taught for 45 years. So this is all very important and close to home for me, but also I guess where I struggle is telling this story in a sort of cohesive manner. And I was at the Capitol yesterday with a group called Study Colorado, and they're, again, higher education, and they do primarily international student recruitment to institutions here in Colorado. And I was in a meeting with them this afternoon, and I said it would be helpful if we had sort of an ask for the legislators that we met with, or we had breakfast burritos and they walked through and we talked to the ones that would stop. And so there was no real ask. It was just sort of raising visibility. But I suggested to them that that linking it to K-12 is a reasonable approach, because those state legislators do have control over funding in K-12, whether or not, and sort of talking about the pipeline of, educating students, making sure that our students are prepared for our higher education institutions, and then that having international students participating or attending our institutions helps to ensure that we have a workforce who's prepared for taking their place in this global economy. And I just feel like I personally feel like I have a full-time job of trying to keep track of whether I have a full-time job anymore, trying to track what's happening in the government at all these different levels. And I don't really have time myself to like put all of those stories together. And so I try to be sort of a facilitator, connecting with people, that kind of thing. But I think sort of whatever you can do to help make this state case relevant to people who are watching what's happening at the federal level, and people who are worried about Medicare and Medicaid, and I mean like all of it, right? Like how to make it really clear in a bite-sized amount that people who aren't going to sit through this meeting will understand, right? Like the things that are happening at the federal level are scary, and it's not possible to overstate the risk. And also, there are things you can do at the local level that could make a difference. Like I don't even know what I'm asking for, but I think that kind of like, how do these things all connect? And if you're worried about, Trump, what can you do right now to help in Colorado, and vice versa, right? Like that kind of thing I think would be helpful. I hope that made any sense at all.
It did a lot, and I appreciate, because everything gets siloed. And one thing that comes to my mind is, and I'll just ask, is that like gut punch with our hand tied behind our back, is that effective? If I wish I could draw via a cartoon, but we all have to start talking about Tabor. The speaker, I don't think she had a plan in mind necessarily when she did it, but she started talking, I think she spoke to the Denver Post about, that we're going to need Tabor reform. And I think we need to make that much more visceral for people. And that is a story that works in higher education and in public health and healthcare and environment. We really have to start turning the tide on how people think about Tabor. Tina?
Yeah, hi everybody. So I really appreciate what you just had to say, Danielle, and you know, the massive chaotic amount of stuff that we have to swallow. But the thing that I want to focus on from this meeting, the very concrete thing, and even Lisa, who says, okay, we have to talk about TABOR. We always do have to talk about TABOR. But to me, the soundbite, the really important thing at this moment is that we've all in the education community, legislators, everybody in this state has waited a long time for those adequacy studies. And now to have people say, yep, we did those studies, but we are not going to look at them is the problem, is the central problem right this minute. So I'm going to try to focus on that particular message with everybody. I'm going to tell teachers that I know. I'm going to talk about that on the 20th when I go to the Capitol. I think that is the central ask this moment. That's what we can ask. Don't blow off that adequacy study. And if we have to be the exception to the interim committee pause, then that's what has to happen, because that's the minimum that you can do in the state for public education, is to take a good look at the adequacy studies. So, you know, I understand that we're all in all this trouble, but if we're looking for a brief, important, impactful message, I think that's what it is. That's what I'm going to be saying.
I am sorry. We've got you taped saying all that. That was fabulous, Tina. I wish we had like highlighted you so we would have you full screen, because that was perfect. And that is what that action does, is trying to make it really simple for people to write to their legislator and say,
Right.
don't put it on a shelf. So please spread that far and wide. Yeah, Jerry. And I appreciate you all
And then
staying on this extra
we are
9
9 minutes over,
minutes.
so we're going to wrap up after this.
So I totally agree with Tina, but also Tabor. Do we have the data of what the average refund will be because of Tabor, and how much more the legislature would have to spend if we didn't have Tabor? Because I really don't think many people out there understand Tabor. We've got a lot of people that have moved to Colorado since Tabor was voted in. It's been part of our life. And it's sort of, okay, this is Colorado, but they really don't understand that, maybe you're going to get $200-300 back. Okay, great. But if we didn't have it back, we might have $500 million or even more. Do we have that data anywhere?
We will know better with the forecast that comes out on Monday, exactly how much that is. Like I said, with permanent tax credits that are good, that go to families mostly, we're giving away about $800 million. And that's permanent now. And so they will get that regardless of the Tabor surplus. The Tabor surplus will be pretty small this year, so we probably can do that. And maybe it's possible that the legislature will refer something. It's a long shot. And we better be able to put a campaign behind it, but to say, can we just keep them, do a Ref C again? 5 years, that, let us keep what we've got coming. And right now is the time to do it, because the numbers aren't as big as when we were, when we had a governor who was making it sure that everybody got $800 check separately in September. Now it's just a line in your taxes that you, and if you do have a rebate, we are encouraging folks to give it to Great Education Colorado.
Maybe that could help us pay for the interim committee.
To pay for the interim committee. Yep, we put
All
$2
right.
million into the adequacy study, and you think that $40,000 more to finish the job is not crazy. Right.
Well, thank you for everybody for coming out tonight. If you express your interest in making calls, I will be in touch with you tomorrow with a script, and we can go ahead and give you a list. We've got a big list right now, but we'll take, depending on what district you're in, we will splice that up a little bit so that you don't have 1,300 calls staring you in the face.